John Miller stood at the viewport of the transport ship, watching as the Galactic Academy came into view. The massive structure floated in space, its silver spires and domes catching the light of the nearby star. This was to be his home for the next 2 years. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of being the first and only human accepted to the Academy. The ship docked with a soft hiss. John grabbed his single bag and joined the line of aliens heading toward the exit. He stood a head taller than most of them, his broad shoulders and muscular frame marking him as different even before anyone noticed his pink skin and round ears. A human. Here. A small blue alien with 4 arms whispered to its companion. I thought their world was quarantined. Not quarantined. Classified as a death world, the other replied. Class 12. Almost as bad as they come. John pretended not to hear. After 15 years as a Marine, he knew when to keep quiet and observe. Let them think what they wanted for now. A tall, tentacled being in flowing robes waited at the entrance to the Academy's main hall. This was Professor Zixnar, according to the orientation materials John had studied during the journey. The Vesperi was the Academy's head of Xenobiology, and John's assigned faculty advisor. Ah, the human specimen has arrived, Zixnar said, 3 of his eye stalks swiveling to examine John. I must say, you look less primitive than I expected. Thank you for the welcome, Professor, John replied evenly. I'm looking forward to studying here. The professor's mouthparts twitched in what might have been amusement. We shall see if your species' brain capacity is sufficient for our curriculum. Follow me. John followed the floating professor through grand hallways, filled with students from across the galaxy. Some stared openly. Others whispered behind their hands, tentacles, or whatever appendages they possessed. The orientation hall was filled with new students seated according to their homeworlds. John found himself alone at a table marked Earth. Welcome, new minds, to the greatest center of learning in the known galaxy, announced a large reptilian being from the stage. I am Battle Master Krell, head of security and combat training. Krell's scales gleamed under the lights as he paced. You have been chosen because your worlds represent the height of civilized evolution. Well, most of you. His gaze landed on John. We have one exception this year, a representative from Sol 3, known to its natives as Earth. The room filled with murmurs and a few laughs. Yes, a Class 12 death world. For those unfamiliar with planetary classifications, that means a world so hostile that most of you would die within days of arrival. Extreme temperature variations, high gravity, dangerous wildlife, toxic plants, natural disasters, and of course, the natives themselves. Krell grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. Perhaps our human guest would like to explain how his species managed to develop space travel when they spend most of their history killing each other. All eyes turned to John. He stood slowly, aware that his response would set the tone for his time here. We adapted, he said simply. Earth taught us to be flexible, resilient, and resourceful. Qualities I hope will serve me well here. Indeed, Professor Zixnar interjected from the side of the room. Though I wonder if adaptability compensates for your species' clear intellectual limitations. Your world's mathematics is particularly quaint. Several students laughed. John remained standing, his face calm. He had expected this. The Galactic Federation viewed Earth as a curiosity at best, a danger at worst. I look forward to learning from you all, John said, then sat down. The orientation continued with housing assignments and course selections. John was given a room in the Special Environments Wing, modified to match Earth's gravity and atmosphere. His course load was lighter than the others. Another sign they expected him to fail. That night, looking out at the stars from his window, John unpacked the one item he brought that wasn't Academy approved, a cloth-wrapped bundle containing his grandfather's katana, a sword whose steel had been folded 1,000 times using techniques passed down through generations. He'd listed it as a cultural artifact on his application. They thought him primitive. They thought him slow. They thought him weak. They were wrong. John's first week at the Galactic Academy tested his patience more than his skills. The alien technology confused him at first. Screens that floated in midair, shares that adjusted to bodies he didn't have, and teaching methods based on shared telepathy rather than spoken words. "You must focus, human," Professor Zixnar said during a study session. The Vesperi's tentacles waved in frustration. Even the youngest Centauri can grasp quantum mechanics through visual spatial thinking. "I'm trying a different approach," John explained, showing his tablet where he had broken down the equations step by step. Humans learn through repetition and pattern recognition. Zixnar's eye stalks bent to examine John's work. Primitive, but correct. The professor sounded surprised. "Your method took 4 times longer, but your answers match our optimal solution." John smiled. "On Earth, we say there are many ways to climb a mountain." "Yes, but some species can simply fly over it," Zixnar replied dryly. Despite these challenges, John found unexpected success in certain classes. In gravitational physics, his experience with Earth's heavy pull gave him insights that amazed even the instructors. In xenobiology, his knowledge of Earth's diverse ecosystems provided useful comparisons. "Your Deathworld harbors over 8 million species?" asked Professor Vell, the xenobiology teacher, during a class presentation. "And humans have cataloged most of them." "We're still discovering new ones every day," John replied, "especially in our oceans, which cover most of our planet." A thin bird-like student with golden feathers raised a wing. "Is it true humans eat other animals? Living things?" The class went silent. Eating another sentient being was taboo in galactic society. "We eat non-sentient animals," John clarified. "Most advanced species on Earth are omnivores. It's how we evolved." "Barbaric," whispered a blue-skinned student named Thraz. His psychic abilities made him a star pupil and a dangerous enemy. "Next he'll tell us they still use projectile weapons." John ignored the comment. He had faced worse in basic training. Instead, he focused on making allies. After class, a delicate avian being approached him. "I'm Lyra," she said, her voice musical. "From Centauri Prime. Our gravity is 1/3 of Earth's. I can't imagine living under such." "Wait." "You get used to it," John said. "That's why I can carry these heavy books without noticing." Lyra's feathers fluffed in what John had learned with surprise. "Is that why you're excelling in physical training? Battlemaster Krell seems confused by your endurance." John nodded. "Earth shaped us to be tough. We had to be." Their conversation was interrupted by a silicon-based being who moved with careful precision. "Your solution to the orbital mechanics problem was elegant," the being said. "I am Dorn of Petra. We value efficiency." John found himself with 2 unexpected friends as they walked to the dining hall. Their meal was interrupted when Thraz and his followers sat at the next table. "How does the Deathworlder enjoy our civilized food?" Thraz asked loudly. "No bloody meat to satisfy your primitive cravings." John took a bite of his synthesized protein. "It's fine. Thank you for asking." Thraz frowned at the calm response. "The combat trials begin next week. Krell says even Class 3 worlders struggle. A Class 12 like you might die." "I'll manage," John said. Later that evening, John received a message on his tablet. His schedule had been changed. Instead of basic physical assessment, he was now assigned to advanced combat training, a class usually reserved for senior students. Someone was trying to force him out. In his room, John unwrapped his sword and began his nightly routine. Slow, deliberate movements, each stance perfect, each swing controlled. The blade caught the light as it moved through the air. This was meditation and preparation. On Earth, his grandfather had taught him that a sword was not just a weapon, but an extension of the self. John would need that wisdom soon. He could feel the challenges building. The academy was testing him, pushing him toward failure. But Earth had prepared him for much worse than academic politics. John sheathed his sword and smiled. Let them keep underestimating him. The truth would be revealed soon enough. The Academy's yearly assessment was announced during morning meal. All students would form teams to compete in academic, technical, and physical challenges. The winning team would earn special privileges and recognition. Teams must have exactly 4 members, Battlemaster Krell explained to the packed dining hall. You have until tomorrow to register your groups. John watched as students quickly formed alliances. No one approached him. Even Lyra and Dorn were invited to other teams, though they hesitated, looking back at John. Go ahead, he told them quietly. You should take the opportunity. By evening, John remained teamless. He was not surprised when Professor Zixnar summoned him to the administrative office. It seems you have no team, human, Zixnar said, not bothering to hide his satisfaction. Unfortunate, but not unexpected. Your kind does not integrate well. I understand, John replied calmly. Academy policy requires all first-year students to participate, Zixnar continued. Therefore, you will join the other, unselected students. John was given a team assignment. Besides himself, it included Lyra, who had been rejected from her team when they found someone stronger, Dorn, who had chosen to leave his assigned group, and a small green amphibian named Glix, who rarely spoke and left slime trails wherever he went. The outcasts, Faraz said with a laugh when he saw them together the next day. His team consisted of the Academy's elite students. This assessment will determine who truly belongs here. Some clearly do not. Professor Zixnar assigned the projects. As John suspected, his team received the most difficult tasks. Their academic challenge involved solving theoretical problems about slip space navigation, a subject none of them specialized in. Their technical project required building a functioning atmospheric converter from basic components. This is graduate-level work, Lyra said, her feathers drooping. They want us to fail. Then let's prove them wrong, John replied. They worked well together despite their differences. Dorn's logical mind excelled at the theoretical problems. Lyra's delicate touch was perfect for assembling small components. Even Glix contributed, his slime proving to be an excellent conductor for certain electrical parts. John coordinated their efforts, breaking down complex problems into manageable tasks. His years of military planning helped him see the most efficient path forward. They were making good progress until 3 days before the submission deadline. John entered their project room to find their atmospheric converter in pieces, crucial components missing. Sabotage, Dorn stated, examining the damage. Probability suggests Thraz's team is responsible. Lyra made a chirping sound of distress. We cannot rebuild it in time. Yes, we can, John said. He pulled out his tablet and began sketching a new design. On Earth, we have a saying: adapt, improvise, overcome. We'll build a simpler version, but make it work better. They worked through the night. When Glix needed to rest in his moisture tank, John continued alone. When Lyra's wings grew too tired to manipulate the fine tools, John's steady hands took over. When Dorn needed to recharge, John kept assembling. Professor Zixnar found him still working the next morning, surrounded by parts and tools. You haven't slept, the professor observed. Humans can go 3 days without sleep when necessary, John explained, not looking up from his work. It's not comfortable, but it's possible. 3 days. Zixnar's eye stalks quivered in disbelief. Most species would experience psychosis after such deprivation. Earth doesn't allow for much rest, John said simply. By the submission deadline, they had rebuilt the converter. It wasn't pretty, but initial tests showed it was 30% more efficient than the original design. During the presentation of projects, Professor Zixnar examined their work with growing interest. You've used Earth-based principles here, he noted, pointing to the cooling system John had designed. Yes. On Earth, we learned to work with limited resources. Primitive but effective, Zixnar admitted. As their team left the stage, John noticed Thraz whispering to Battlemaster Krell. The combat master looked at John and nodded. The physical challenges begin tomorrow, Krell announced. All participants must register their combat specialties by this evening. John walked straight to the registration terminal and entered his name. Under specialty, he wrote, Traditional Earth Weaponry. Lyra fluttered beside him, concerned. What are you doing? You'll face the best fighters in the academy. John smiled. I know. Word spread quickly through the academy about the human who had registered for combat trials. Students gathered in small groups, whispering and casting curious glances at John as he walked to his classes. Even the instructors seemed interested, discussing his choice with a mix of amusement and confusion. Traditional Earth Weaponry, Battlemaster Krell repeated during combat orientation. The large reptilian held up John's registration form for all to see. In an age of energy weapons and force fields, our human participant wishes to use primitive tools. The combat arena was a large circular space with seating around the edges. Hundreds of students and faculty filled the seats on the day of the trials. John sat with his team, watching the early matches. Fighters used everything from energy staffs to psychic attacks to gravity manipulators. Your match is next, Lyra whispered, her feathers trembling with worry. Your opponent is Gravnar, a Hextonian. They can manipulate kinetic force. John nodded, studying the blue-skinned alien who was warming up on the arena floor. Gravnar was showing off, creating small force bubbles that popped with loud cracks. You can still withdraw, Dorn said logically. The probability of success against a Hextonian without energy weapons is less than 12.4%. I'm not here to win, John replied. I'm here to learn. When his name was called, John walked to the center of the arena. He wore a simple training uniform with nothing that looked like a weapon. The crowd grew quiet, then burst into laughter. Where is your traditional weapon, human? Krell demanded from the judge's platform. I'll use it when needed, John answered. For now, I wish to understand my opponent. More laughter rippled through the crowd. Gravnar smiled, showing pointed teeth. Your funeral, Deathworlder. The match began. Gravnar immediately launched a series of kinetic blasts. John dodged the first two, then was hit by the third. The force sent him sliding across the floor. He got up quickly, watching Gravnar's movements carefully. For the next 5 minutes, John did nothing but evade and observe. He took hits when necessary, absorbing the impact and recovering faster than anyone expected. The crowd grew restless, booing the defensive display. Fight back, someone shouted. Is this how humans fight? Krell called out. By running away. John ignored them, his focus entirely on Gravnar. He was mapping the alien's attack patterns, timing, and power levels. When Gravnar began to slow, John finally moved forward. His first strike was fast, much faster than anyone expected. He ducked under a kinetic blast and delivered a precise hit to a nerve cluster in Gravnar's arm. The Hextonian's next blast went wide. He studied Hextonian anatomy. Professor Zixnar murmured from the faculty section. Interesting. John continued his approach, using quick strikes to disrupt Gravnar's concentration. It wasn't enough to win, but it showed more skill than the aliens had expected. Eventually, a powerful blast caught John squarely and knocked him down. This time, he stayed down, conceding the match. The crowd seemed disappointed by the anticlimactic ending. John limped back to his team. You never use your weapon, Lyra said. Not yet, John replied. I'm saving it. He won his next match against a 4-armed Quetzal by using simple wrestling techniques. The third match ended in another deliberate loss, though John lasted longer than expected against a levitating Ori. By the 4th day of trials, John had faced 6 opponents. He had won 2 matches, lost 4, but had never revealed his weapon. His body was covered in bruises, but he never visited the medical bay. His rapid healing amazed his teammates. On the 5th day, the tournament brackets were updated. John was matched against Thraz. This is no coincidence, Dorn observed. The match assignments have been manipulated. Thraz approached their table during the midday meal. Ready to be humiliated, human. I'll show everyone why Deathworlders don't belong here. I look forward to our match, John said calmly. As Thraz walked away, Lyra noticed something. He has a neural disruptor hidden in his sleeve. Those are forbidden in the trials. John nodded. I know. He plans to cheat. You should report him. Glick spoke up, rare for the quiet amphibian. No, John said. I have a better idea. It's time to show them what a Deathworlder can do. The day of John's match with Thraz arrived. The arena was packed with spectators eager to see the confrontation. Even instructors who normally skip the trials were present, curious about the matchup between the Academy's top psychic student and the mysterious human. This should be enlightening, Professor Zixnar remarked to a colleague. The human has shown unusual restraint so far, almost as if he's been studying. Battlemaster Krell stood in the center of the arena. Today's first match. Thraz of Andoria Prime versus John Miller of Earth. Thraz entered to cheers and applause. He moved with confidence, his blue skin gleaming under the lights. John walked in quietly from the opposite side. He carried a long cloth-wrapped bundle. Finally bringing your primitive weapon, human? Krell asked, eyeing the bundle. Yes, John replied. It seemed appropriate for this match. Thraz smiled coldly. It won't help you against my abilities. The two fighters took their positions. John set his bundle on the ground, but didn't unwrap it. He stood in a relaxed stance, hands empty. Begin, Krell announced, stepping back. Thraz immediately launched a psychic attack. Most opponents would freeze in place as their nervous systems were overwhelmed. John flinched but kept moving. He had trained against pain during his Marine years. Impressive resistance, Thraz said, increasing the intensity. But futile. John moved forward steadily despite the pain. Thraz looked surprised and backed away. He reached for his sleeve where the neural disruptor was hidden. Now, John said, as if to himself. He dived for his bundle, rolled, and came up with the cloth falling away to reveal a sheathed sword. Thraz activated the illegal disruptor. A wave of energy shot toward John. In one fluid motion, John drew his katana and swung it through the energy wave. The specially treated steel deflected the blast, splitting it around him. The crowd gasped. Even Krell's mouth fell open. Impossible, Thraz said, firing again. John moved with startling speed. His previous matches had been fought at half his true pace. Now he showed his full capabilities. The sword became a blur as he deflected each blast, moving closer to Thraz with each step. This blade has been in my family for 5 generations, John explained as he advanced. The steel was folded 1,000 times using traditional methods. But after Earth joined the galactic community, we added a few modern touches. He was now within striking distance of Thraz. The Andorian tried to back away, but John was too quick. The metal has been treated to deflect energy. Not high-level weapons, of course, but certainly enough for a cheater's hidden disruptor. With a precise movement, John sliced through Thraz's sleeve, cutting away the hidden device without touching the alien skin. It fell to the floor with a clatter. The arena went silent. Illegal weapon, Krell announced, stepping forward. Thraz is disqualified. Wait, John said, holding up his hand. I request the match continue fairly. No disruptor, no psychic attacks. Just skill against skill. Thraz looked at John with new eyes, no longer dismissive, but wary. Agreed. What followed was a display of swordsmanship that left the audience speechless. John moved through forms that had been perfected on Earth over centuries. The katana caught the light as it moved through the air, an extension of his body rather than a separate tool. Thraz fought well with the standard Academy combat staff, but he was outmatched. Within minutes, John had disarmed him and held the tip of his sword to Thraz's throat. Yield, Thraz said, his voice quiet. John lowered his sword and bowed slightly, a traditional sign of respect from Earth. In the silence that followed, Professor Zixnar stood up. "I believe we have all misjudged our human student," he announced. "He has not been failing our tests. He has been testing us." The professor looked directly at John. "And many of us, myself included, have failed his test. We saw only what we expected to see, a primitive being from a violent world. We failed to recognize sophistication when it did not match our preconceptions." Battlemaster Krell approached John in the center of the arena. "That weapon, it is more than it appears. As are you." John nodded. "On Earth, we learned early that appearances can be deceiving. The most dangerous predators often look harmless until it's too late." Word of John's victory spread through the academy like wildfire. Students who had avoided him now watched him with curious eyes. Instructors who had dismissed him reassessed their opinions. But the final challenge of the assessment still remained: the survival test. Teams would enter a simulation chamber programmed to recreate hostile environments. They would be scored on their ability to overcome obstacles, work together, and reach the extraction point. "Your team will face Environment 7. Battlemaster Krell informed John the morning after his match with Thraz. "What's Environment 7? John asked. Krell's reptilian face showed the closest thing to respect John had seen from him. "A Class 8 Deathworld. Not as harsh as your Earth, but difficult enough. The other teams face Class 3 or 4 environments." John nodded. He had expected this. Even after his display in the arena, they were still testing him. When John told his team about their assignment, Lyra's feathers drooped in fear. "A Class 8. That's beyond my physiological limits." "Mine as well," Dorn admitted. "Silicon-based life forms struggle in high oxygen environments." Vlix made a bubbling sound that indicated distress. "We'll make it," John assured them. "Trust me and follow my lead." The simulation chamber was a massive room that could change its interior completely. Teams entered one by one. When John's team stepped inside, they found themselves on a rocky plain beneath a red sun. The air was thick and hot. In the distance, a mountain range marked their destination. "First step," John said, "we assess our resources and threats." He had spent years in hostile environments during his Marine service. This felt familiar. They had basic survival packs with water, simple tools, and emergency signals. John divided the supplies based on each member's abilities. Lyra would scout from above despite the heavy atmosphere. Dorn would analyze soil and rock samples. Glix would test water sources for toxins. They made good progress for the first 2 hours. Then the simulation shifted. Storm clouds gathered. The wind picked up. "Acid rain," Dorn warned, analyzing a droplet. "Highly corrosive." John spotted a cave in a nearby cliff face. "Shelter, quickly." They reached the cave just as the rain began to fall heavily. The ground sizzled where the drops landed. Inside, they caught their breath. "The simulation isn't supposed to be this severe," Lyra said, her voice shaking. "This is beyond Class 8 parameters." A rumble shook the cave. Rocks fell from the ceiling. "The system is malfunctioning," Dorn stated. "This has become a real danger." Through the cave entrance, John saw other teams struggling in the open. One group was trapped on a rocky outcrop as acid pooled around them. Among them was Thraz. "We need to help them," John said. "That is not part of our assessment," Dorn pointed out. "It is part of being human," John replied. He unsheathed his sword and cut strips from his uniform, wrapping the fabric around his hands. "Wait here." Before his team could protest, John ran out into the acid rain. The protective fabric wouldn't last long. His skin burned where the drops touched it. He reached the stranded team and shouted over the storm, "Follow me. I know a safe path." Thraz stared at him in disbelief. "Why would you help us?" Questions later, John said, "Survival now." John led them through the storm, using his sword to test ground stability before stepping. His hands blistered from the acid seeping through the makeshift gloves. Finally, they reached the cave. Inside, medical supplies were shared. John's burns were treated by a Thraz team member with healing abilities. You risk your life for competitors, Faraz said quietly. Why? On Earth, enemies often become allies when facing a common threat, John explained. It's how we survived. A voice boomed through the simulation chamber. Attention all participants. The system has malfunctioned. Assessment terminated. Remain in place for extraction. As they waited, the combined teams shared stories. For the first time, the alien students asked genuine questions about Earth. They listened with interest instead of disgust, as John described how humans had adapted to their dangerous world. Perhaps, Faraz said thoughtfully, what makes a species truly advanced is not their technology or psychic abilities, but their capacity to overcome their natural instincts when necessary. Professor Zixnar's voice came through the communication system. All teams prepare for extraction. And, Cadet Miller, your actions today have been noted. The Academy may have underestimated the value of Deathworld training. 2 weeks after the survival challenge, John stood outside the Academy's main lecture hall. A message from the administration had summoned him there, but gave no details about why. He straightened his uniform and entered. Inside, he found not just students but also faculty, and even some visitors from the Galactic Council. The hall fell silent as he walked in. John noticed his teammates sitting in the front row. Lyra waved her wings slightly, encouraging him forward. At the podium stood Academy Director Vex, a tall, silver-skinned being rarely seen by students. Beside him were Professor Zixnar and Battle Master Krell. Cadet Miller, Director Vex called. Please join us. John walked to the front, aware of hundreds of eyes watching him. He stood at attention, as he had been taught in the Marines. The events of the recent assessment have prompted the Academy to reevaluate certain perspectives, Director Vex began, particularly our understanding of Class 12 Deathworlds and their inhabitants. The director gestured to a display screen showing Earth. Your planet has long been viewed as dangerous, primitive, and barely civilized. Yet you have shown qualities that contradict our assumptions. Professor Zixnar stepped forward. The Academy exists to share knowledge across the galaxy. But knowledge is not just about advanced technology or energy manipulation. It includes wisdom gained through struggle. The professor looked directly at John. Your performance during the assessment demonstrated not just physical abilities, but problem-solving, adaptability, and ethical judgment that many of us fail to recognize. Battle Master Krell spoke next. In combat, you showed restraint when you could have dominated. In crisis, you risked yourself for others who had not treated you well. These are the marks of a true warrior. Director Vex addressed the hall again. The Academy administration has made a decision. We are creating a new course of study, adaptive survival techniques, and we are asking Cadet Miller to teach it. A murmur swept through the crowd. A human teaching at the Galactic Academy. Unprecedented. John was speechless for a moment. Sir, I'm still a first-year student. In some subjects, Director Vex agreed. But in others, you are the expert here. Your experiences on Earth have value that we have overlooked. It is time we learned from each other. After the ceremony, students crowded around John. Many apologized for their earlier behavior. Others asked questions about Earth with genuine interest. Faraz approached last. I misjudged you, the Andorian said simply. My people value mental abilities above all else. I believe that made us superior. I was wrong. Different strengths, different weaknesses, John replied. That's why we need each other. 1 week later, John taught his first class. The lecture hall was packed beyond capacity. He began by placing his katana on the desk before him. This sword represents Earth's journey, he explained. It was created through ancient techniques using fire and strength. But it has been enhanced with modern knowledge, just as humans have evolved, keeping our core strengths while embracing new ideas. He looked out at the eager faces. Earth taught humans hard lessons. We faced predators that could outrun us, outfight us. We endured diseases, natural disasters, and our own wars. We survived because we learned to balance competition with cooperation, tradition with innovation, strength with compassion. In the back row sat Professor Zixnar, who had requested permission to attend the class. The Vesperi's tentacles were perfectly still as he listened, a sign of deep attention in his species. The greatest danger any species faces, John continued, is believing they have nothing to learn from others. Earth's harshness taught humans humility. We know we are not perfect. We know we make mistakes, but we keep trying to be better. After class, Professor Zixnar approached John. "I have a request," the Vesperi said. "I wish to study Earth's history and culture in detail. Perhaps you could recommend where to begin." John smiled. "I'd be happy to, Professor. And I'm still hoping to learn more about advanced quantum mechanics from you." "A fair exchange," Zixnar agreed. "Different knowledge, equal value." As they walked from the hall together, John realized something had changed. He had come to the academy hoping to prove humans belonged among the stars. Instead, he had helped the galaxy understand that diversity, even from death worlds, made them all stronger.